Hey all, it's me again. Um, so I've been reading a little bit of Schopenhauer, and I've gotten a little bit into Saint Augustine, who was a theologian in the early history of the Christian Church, and someone who made a lot of contributions to Christian theology, philosophy. A lot of them were very pessimistic, but a lot of them were also very influential on modern day Christianity. He was the original person that came with the idea of original sin, which permeates most of Christianity, as far as I understand. And Schopenhauer plays a lot with Christian theology within his books, essays, and aphorisms. For instance, he makes this point that we inherently are punished for something outside of our control, which he compares to the doctrine of original sin within Christianity. Later on in the book, he says that you can distinguish Christianity in two types, which is the optimistic form of Christianity and the pessimistic form of Christianity. The pessimistic one, which he attributes to Augustine, I can't remember the optimistic one, but he says that kind of the inherent doctrine of Christianity is that we're inherently flawed, we're born into sin, and we're punished for that just for being in sin, and that the only way to really escape that is to be, uh, generous to the poor, to be have a certain degree of egolessness, to deny the will to some degree, and that these are also all present in Schopenhauer's philosophy as well. Schopenhauer, at one point in his book, he makes this really kind of arrogant comment about how his philosophy is paradoxically more close to Christianity than the Enlightenment philosophies of his day, because um, a lot of Enlightenment philosophy is very optimistic, but a lot of Christianity is a lot more pessimistic about the endeavors of human beings. Saying that they're inherently flawed, and that there's even a line in the Bible that says what is made crooked cannot be made straight, or what is crooked cannot be made straight. Excuse me. Um, there's especially this one point that this one idea that Saint Augustine had. It was called the uh, excuse me if I butcher this Latin, but it's the libido dominatius, I believe, which refers to our drive to dominate, and that is inherent to us, and that's kind of like our original sin, which is very similar to Schopenhauer's idea of the will to life, or the Wille zum Leben. Excuse me, I got the Latin term wrong. It's libido dominandi, but libido dominandi is this concept that Augustine came up with, which means the desire to dominate. And he said that within human societies, especially like Rome, that it wasn't necessarily the good people who were given power, it's the people that knew how to play the game of power that got power. Um, there's a lot of parallels you can make with Rome in America, based off of Augustine's book, The Two Kingdoms. I'll link the video that I watched on Augustine just now, so you can get a more objective overview of Augustine. Um, but there are a lot of parallels that can be made within Schopenhauer's philosophy and Augustine's, just because of what I said. Because a lot of these very same points are also present within Schopenhauer's philosophy. A lot of the points about how there's a distinguishment between the world as it is versus the world as it should be, um, because it's within the aphorisms, specifically the section Law and Politics, that he says that in theory our society has eliminated injustice, but injustice is the rule of the day. You know, at the very beginning of his book, in his essays, he says that if our purpose is anything except, this is so pessimistic of him, but he says, if our purpose in life is anything other than suffering, then our lives are the most ill adapted thing that you can think up of. Because suffering is often the rule, not the suffering is the rule. And its absence is often the exception. And so, what both Augustine and Schopenhauer understand is that the world is a fundamentally unjust place, and that there is a point to be made about distinguishing the world as it is run by man and the world as it should be run by the Lord. You know, this goes into Plato's idea of the theory of forms, wherein we can imagine things as having an ideal form, and that, at least in abstract, we can imagine there being a, world of forms, if only in our minds, and that everything does try to seek this ideal form, but it never actually gets to that point. I'd like to leave this video off on a very happy, optimistic outlook on life, as espoused by Schopenhauer, for which he quoted from Aristotle, which is that we exist in a state of continual becoming and never being, which means that we're always striving towards perfection, but we can never attain it, which, it's pessimistic, but if you understand and come to peace with that, then you find genuine happiness in life, and you have an awareness of happiness, per se. And so, I guess the final thing that I want to leave this video off on is that, really, if you want to find happiness in the world, you need to be acutely aware of its suffering, or else you're not going to be able to overcome that suffering, and whatever happiness you do have is naturally going to be overshadowed by that suffering, because, you can be extremely comfortable within your bed, but if there's a pinch in your shoe, God, heaven forbid you have a pinch in your shoe whenever you're trying to go to sleep. That's the only thing you're going to notice until you go to sleep. So, that's what I wanted to make this video about. All right, bye all.